Welcome to meet the photographers and artists of the Festival of Political Photography 2024. This year marks the 6th edition of the festival. The festival was founded 10 years ago in 2014 in Helsinki, Finland, and it's still based on Helsinki. The theme of the year's festival is a diagnosis. My name is Iiri Poteri. I'm a visual artist, and I also work this year festival communication. Next, it's my pleasure to talk with the photographer Myriam Boulos, whose photographic work, What's Ours, is part of a Festival of Political Photography 2024. Hello, Myriam.
Hello.
Would you like to introduce yourself in the beginning and tell about your relationship with photography? How did you find it?
Yes, of course. So I'm Myriam Boulos. I'm a Lebanese photographer. And so if I wanted to introduce myself and my relationship to photography, I guess it would take us back to when I was 5 years old.
Oh, wow.
I had this I had this small fuchsia camera that I loved.
Mm.
And one day we were in the car with my family, and my younger brother, he was really really small. He took the camera and threw it away from the car window on the highway. And yeah, until now I remember very clearly the feeling I had at this moment. It was as if when you're washing your hands with a soap and it slides away from your hands. It
Mm.
felt exactly like this, as if reality was escaping from me.
Mm.
And I think that for me, at least, photography is exactly the opposite of this feeling. It's a way of getting closer to reality and grasping reality in a way. So 10 years later, when I was 16, I met a girl at school who became one of my closest friends,
Mm.
and she had this sophisticated camera, and we started taking a lot of pictures together, and I fell in love with this medium, with this media. And one day I went back home and I told my parents I want the same camera.
Mm.
And my mother looked at me and she was like, "Of course not." And she told me that I had to develop my gaze and my way of looking at things and at life and at people and myself
Mm.
before getting this expensive object. And I think that this was the moment where photography became the most fluid and easy thing for me because
Mm.
I think it's a medium that is made for me. Yeah, and from the beginning, my approach was a mix of documentary and diary.
Mm.
And I don't know how much you want me to talk. I can talk a lot about this.
Okay, yeah, I can continue, but I will have a small question because I watched some other interview that you made, and I think you said that you are not allowed to talk the truth in a Lebanon. That and then this photographing is somehow a way of maybe talking about truth or showing what is truth.
Actually,
Did I get it
this
right, or how do you think
no,
about
you
that?
got it right, but actually, it's a quote it's not something that I said myself. It's someone that is in this documentation of the repercussions of the August Pro explosion.
Mm.
It's a man who lost his son during the explosion, and he
Mm.
was telling me that we cannot speak the truth because he was saying that he keeps on telling to international media that he was talking about who targeted the port during the
Mm.
explosion, and this is what he was not allowed to say, and this is where he was censored.
Mm.
But I think that somehow it is true for me too, because I think that people censor words and it's more difficult to censor images.
Mm.
And I mean, on Instagram, it's very easy to censor images, but but what I mean by this is that I have difficulties with words and with images. I I feel like I can be loud and I can be heard. When
Mm,
with words, I feel like I'm not finding my words. I'm not being able to express myself. I'm not being able to communicate with
mm.
people with words. So yeah, some people use words. I use images for to be heard. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, then I will go for your work, What's Ours? It consists images from 10 years, like 2013 to 2023, and also these texts, like a diary notes that you
Mhm.
wrote after 2019. And it
Yes.
pictures the revolution in Lebanese capital Beirut.
Yes.
Was it difficult to choose images from this long period of time and in order to tell this story and what the story is about for you?
So for me, it's about intertwined revolutions. So I
Mm,
think that the revolution in Beirut, like the uprising in Beirut, is a context to explore so many other things, and it's kind of uh, a context to explore the things that I always try to tackle in my work. For example, I started with Beirut's nightlife, which for me was very similar to revolutions because it's a way of exteriorizing things that we are taught to bottle up and like silence and keep inside, and it's a way of doing it collectively. And then this documentation that is called What's Ours, and it's based on intertwined a documentation of intertwined revolutions, is kind of the same. It's a way of speaking up and exteriorizing everything that we are taught to. We go back to censorship. We are taught to censor and yeah and silence. And my most recent project and ongoing project on sexual fantasies is also another context to do the same thing.
mm.
And yeah, yes. Does that answer your question? I can elaborate if you want.
Yes, yes, I think it did, and I will a bit actually continue about going maybe a bit deeper with this work. Uh, that when I read it, I found quite many contrasts in it. Like there was life and death, and
Mhm. Yeah,
also day and night, and
yeah.
personal and public, and also
Mhm.
in an emotional level. I have a quote from the text of your work.
Yeah,
Mm, Everything has been emotionally and physically draining and confusing, but also beautiful, sad, and awakening. Um, so your work opened up for me what it is to live in this kind of restless and conflict situation. And I was thinking when I found these contrasts, did you thought about them when you were making this work? And or what you think about that? I found it this contrasts, and I think that was also a really powerful feeling of when you put these two together.
yeah. Thank you for saying this. And the contrast is definitely here. And for me, it's not even a binary contrast. It's like so many things that coexist together. And this is another reason why photography is so important for me because it's a way of placing everything you need to express in one image and then kind of deconstructing it in an addition of images in a series with the text to add some nuances and some layers and with the text to to add different voices which also adds multiplicity and diversity and
Mm.
um, contrast, if we want to say, um, because it's actually the text is not only based on my own diary, it's also based on fragments of conversations with people I photographed and people I was in conversation to, I spoke to during this phase. Um, but yeah, from it's I have a lot of things to say about this because you mentioned, for example, the day and night. And
Mm.
actually before this, before 2019, I didn't used to take pictures during the day. I only took pictures at night.
Mm.
Um, it wasn't even a conscious choice. It was like, for me, this is when everything, like, this is when things appeared for me at night before. Um, and then with the start of the revolution and with the start of this movement, it's as if it was almost like a coming out. It was as if like all the masks fell,
Mm,
and I started taking pictures during the day too, and in colors too.
mm,
Um, yeah, so yeah, and when you ask about the link between the intimate and the
mm,
yeah the public and the collective, or the individual and the collective and the public, yeah. For me, it's something that I'm always very that I that I feel very deeply, and I always felt like um, there was a very there was kind of a, I feel like they're very connected, but in the experience of it, in the physicality of it, I feel like there's a disconnect between my own person and the rest of the world.
mm,
So this moment was kind of a way of bringing them closer
mm,
to making them coexist. And again, it wasn't a conscious choice, it just came naturally. And for me, it's about like it's I naturally talk through the personal about the political.
mm,
Um, and in an unconscious way, I think it's a way of defying it's a way of, I'm looking for my words, so I'm taking my time. It's a way of humanizing us actually in the region. And in this sense, it's a way of um, defying the traditional ways of representing our region in photography and documentary, and not reducing us to numbers and statistics, but documenting us through personal stories.
mm.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
comes from me naturally, but yeah, it's a conscious choice photographically. Yeah.
yeah. This is just a really spontaneous idea, because the team is also like diagnosis, the festival team. And I think diagnose can be really like an intimate thing. It's really like personal. But then when you kind of find your like if you find people who are having the same diagnose, you suddenly
Yeah.
feel that we
Yeah.
are somehow we share something, or there is
Like you're
some,
not alone.
yeah. Yeah,
It's
or
exactly this. I'm
mm,
interrupting you. I'm sorry. It's exactly this. It's like it's as if like before the revolution, I was kind of fighting on my own, and photography is a way, like, because it's collaborations with other people, it's a way of seeing other people and seeing the fact that we're fighting actually, like we're having the same fight, and it's a way of feeling seen in the same way. You see
mm.
what I mean? But yeah, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, but that's also really important, because I had also a question about because I have understood that it's important for you in your work that the models and the subjects has agency, and
Yes.
that you have their consent. Uh,
Yes.
and can you tell how this affects your work when you photograph? Because there is also kind of more documentary scenes from the street. How do you find this shared space or consent with
Of
everyone?
course. Actually, this is also something that this phase and the uprising in Lebanon also affected a lot my approach in this sense, because I used to take pictures in a way where um, I wasn't aware of the importance of consent actually.
Mm,
And during the revolution, I became aware of the fact that by documenting my own experience in the situation, I was inevitably documenting and telling the stories of so many other people. And I realized that I couldn't just use people's bodies and faces to express myself and
mm,
what I was going through. And this is when I started including text, because like it's a way. The thing that I used to ask people is, what do you want the world to hear? Actually, this there were a lot of questions, but this was the main question, because yeah, because we were in a place where in a place where everyone was shouting without being heard, and I had this privilege of having photography to express myself, and the privilege of having international media to communicate this with the word. Um, and um, yeah, I'm trying to go back to your question exactly. But yeah, the importance of of the consent. Yeah. Um, and this is when actually my work became collaborative because
Mm.
I realized that by being behind the camera, we have so much power.
Yes.
And yes, and that it's very important to share this agency. And like this brings us back to deconstructing photography's traditional approach, which is um, for me it's clearly patriarchal and colonial. So it's like when photography becomes like for me it's important for photography and my approach to be much more collaborative and to be more circular and not like binary. Like it's
Do
like
you
to
have
include.
do you have an example of situation? Like, do you ask people that do you want to be in a photograph, or how these situations
Yeah.
go?
So it depends actually, because for example, the example that you gave in your question, the fact that when we are protesting and for example we are running away from the tear gas,
Mm.
um, I don't have the time to have a conversation with the person I'm photographing. So I like while running, I'm like, hey, I took a picture of you. Can I have your number? So I send you the picture, and then like once we were in contact, we started a conversation, which
Mm.
is something that works well for me because photography is a way of being present, present in an intense way in the present moment, like present physically in an intense way, and then taking the time to process things and to deconstruct things and to to continue the moment of the picture and to see the depth of the moment of the picture, what came before, what came after, encountering the whole universe that the person in the picture, the people in the picture carried with them at the moment of the picture, and the encounter with the word I was carrying with me at the moment of the picture.
Mm.
So yeah, and it's also a way of processing, mentally, emotionally,
Mm.
while processing the images through the
Mm.
editing, retouching, the sequencing, everything. Yeah.
And I don't know, is it so that have you got to know new people through this kind of way of working? Because it
Of
sounds like,
course.
yeah, that you can find like a new friends through this kind of working method.
Completely,
Mm.
completely. Like photography is, and this is one of the reasons I started photography because I'm shy and like I have yeah, I get overwhelmed in the present moment by people, by senses, by everything. So photography is a way of breaking the ice. It's a way of
Yeah.
yeah, in a way getting closer to people and at the same time having boundaries.
Mm.
So yeah, respecting boundaries, your boundaries and the boundaries of the people, of
Yeah.
other people you're encountering. Yeah.
Mm. Uh, then I was interested to hear how your work has been received in Lebanon. Like, has it been different there and outside of the Lebanon?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, when during the first week of the revolution, I got heavily cyberbullied because my images were published on what like Time magazine published my images, and a lot of people said that my images did not represent us. And I talk about this in this documentation, in this work. I say how I still don't know what us means since like yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
um, but I was cyberbullied mainly um, because my images were showing minorities from one side, and many people in Lebanon do not like. Yeah, the cyberbullying was representative of many things.
Mm.
Yeah,
And is
and
it still continuing, or did it kind
no,
of?
no, 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 no,
Okay.
no. It was around a short period of time, very intense. Yeah.
Okay.
I was cyberbullied also because my images showed violence, and which for me, violence is necessary when it comes from oppression.
Yeah.
Um, yes, and some people were saying that we shouldn't show violence, that we should show that the protest is peaceful.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
At the
that's
same time, like, yeah, but like the cyberbullying was very violent, not in a in a harmful way, not in a yeah. But at the same time, it I learned a lot from these reactions. Yeah, and
mm.
they actually affected my work. Yeah.
How? I
And
mean,
like this is when I became very conscious of the place of consent, the place of like it made me question so many things.
mm,
Um, yeah, and at the same time, it made me be during a long phase very careful. Um, yeah, which is something that is important, but at the same time, at some point it kind of censored. I was censoring myself, and I'm
mm.
trying to get out of this. Yeah.
Yeah, and then because I think I also had a question a bit about polarization, but it was related to exactly this what you were mentioning, that your pictures doesn't represent us, this
Yes.
and what us means. Uh, because you say that it arose like a bullying, but was it also at the same time, I would imagine that it would also that some people really did, or was there like a community who was really happy also that you
Yes,
were
of course.
showing this side? Yeah.
Yes,
So
of course.
so there was, or it sounds like that there is this kind of a two really different way of watching what's happening and how people are feeling of how to represent
Yeah,
Mm,
but again, I don't think it was two ways of seeing. I think it was like many different ways of receiving this. But at the same time, I understand these reactions because it brings us back to what I was saying a few minutes ago, how by telling my own story, I was documenting the story of many other people. So it's normal that people
mm,
who, yeah, it's, I feel like it's
yeah.
justified in a way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. And I think even though I was mentioning this kind of contrast, I think also when I was reading your like this what's ours work, like reading the text and watching the images, and it was really emotionally heavy and touching. I don't know, maybe it's because what is this horrible situation happening in Gaza, and you only see in the photographs, and then when I read this story of yours, it was it was really intimate in some level and touching, and yeah, mm,
Mm.
yeah,
But actually, what is happening, like the genocide that is happening right now in Palestine, in Gaza,
mm,
also made me question how we always try, you know, how I was saying that in a way, personal stories humanize us.
mm,
And I think that this comes from the fact that we are dehumanized
mm,
as Arabs when we are represented in general. And it made me question my like made me kind of fed up of needing to humanize ourselves
mm.
and justifying our humanity. You see what I mean? So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, that's true. But yeah, yeah, what I wanted to say was that then at the same time I saw that it's not like a black and white two side, but it's much more complicating, like it's like life is.
yeah, yeah.
Your work. And also um yeah, did I understood right when you say that that you then don't want to show like if other people are dehumanizing, then you feel that you should humanize yourself, but then now you are thinking you don't want to do that. Did I?
Exactly.
Yes.
Literally, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, but I was saying that in Lebanon, I just want to make this clear because I was saying that in Lebanon, the situation was not so polarized, but because there are many different political parties and many different ways of seeing things in Lebanon, and many, yeah. But for me, what's happening in Palestine is pretty clear. Like when it comes to the oppression, it's it's because people try to use the fact that it's complicated
Mm.
to 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 disengage the world, but at the same time, it's pretty clear
Yeah, what's
that
happening?
that is oppressor oppressed, and
Yeah.
and yeah.
How is actually the situation now in Lebanon?
Oh, it's still catastrophic, like economically, and
Mm. Okay.
yeah.
Okay, then I will go for the next question. Um, in 2021, you joined for Magnum Photos Cooperative. Um, has your work changed after that? And what kind of meaning does Magnum have for you today?
Um, It's funny because it's a question that I get a lot if my work changed after joining Magnum, but I think that my work has been changing independently from Magnum because it's always in movement. It's always moving forward and like in different directions.
Yeah.
But what's very important for me in Magnum is like it's maybe this is gonna sound stupid, but the fact that as photographers you're really supported by by a whole group of staff
Mm.
who really support us in our work. So this is something that I did not have before, and the connections and conversations with the different photographers. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine, even though, of course, your own work will change individually also, but maybe having like a support and maybe
Yes.
like that in some level can affect to that. No, or maybe the photographers are mostly seen as individuals working alone and being really somehow uh,
You,
not so networked, maybe, or
Actually, there is both because I think that photography is a kind of solitary practice in
Mm.
the first place. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
but at the same time, there are a lot of conversations, which I think is very important because I think that Magnum is kind of a representation of how the world functions, and it's important to have these conversations going.
Mm.
Yeah, does that
Yeah.
make sense? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Um, yeah, I think I came a bit in the end of my questions, but maybe if I will ask if there was something that you feel important with your work, what's ours that didn't came up now that you would like to add. Um,
Your questions were really good, actually. Like they make me talk a lot, and and I was very comfortable. Thank you for this.
okay.
Um, Actually, there is one thing that I wanted to say that is not completely linked to what's ours, but it's kind of linked to the continuation of the work, and it's linked to one of your questions.
Yeah.
You were asking about my approach and consent, and yeah, how to challenge photography's traditional yeah um,
Yeah, this is
history.
really
So
powerful. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I think that my most recent project on sexual fantasies is kind of an answer to this, because in this work, I am not the one who goes to people and tell them, "Hey, can I take a picture of you?" It's like the process is kind of it's different. I post open calls and people tell me, "Hi, I want to be part of your project." So it's an example of
Hmm.
how to share agency. So yeah,
And maybe it's also about this question of being seen, that, hey, I want to be seen. And then quite many
exactly.
times in a photography, photographer is saying like, ah, I want to see you.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's
And
really nice.
and it goes from being exposed to being represented, and also because exactly what you said, it's in this project, I asked each person how they want to be represented and what they want to show or hide, or even if they want to be in the image or not.
Mm.
So yeah, it's yeah.
Great. Okay, we are soon the time is also over, so I will now say thank you, and
Thank you.
it was
Thank
nice
you.
to have this interview.
Thank you.